Jaguar once ruled the roads as a symbol of luxury, but today it's stuck in the slow lane. So how did this icon become an afterthought, lose its drivers, and botch what many call the worst rebrand in car history? On today's episode of the Infographics Show, we're revealing the real reason Jaguar is failing. In the car world, some names speak for themselves. Ferrari, Lamborghini, Rolls-Royce. They're not just machines, they are status symbols that scream luxury before the engine even starts. When you're behind the wheel of one of these cars, you are not just driving a vehicle. It's almost like a fashion statement. And one of those brands with a very distinct image was Jaguar, a British mark that bridged the gap between dependable workhorse and high-end luxury, and it quickly developed a loyal fan base. But now many of those fans are turning their backs on the brand. These days, Jaguar is more of a footnote in the car world. It merged with a bigger company, lost much of its clout, and struggled through failed attempts to get a larger foothold in the market. While its parent company, Jaguar Land Rover, did make an impressive profit of £2.5 billion in the last financial year, the brand has seen the bottom fall out, dropping registrations by 97.5% since the previous year. Across the world, the news was no less grim. It sold just under 27,000 units in the 24-25 financial year, down from almost 181,000 in 2018. That is not a slide, it's a meteoric fall. And it was a long time coming. For such a famous company, Jaguar didn't actually start by selling cars at all. It started life as the Swallow Sidecar Company in 1922, founded by William Walmsley and William Lyons, selling motorcycle sidecars. But after a falling out between the two, Lyons founded SS Cars in 1934 and took it public. Using the company's side business of building passenger car bodies, he set out to launch a new brand. Lyons knew the craft, and now he just needed a name that would capture imaginations. And he remembered everyone loves cats. The first Jaguar rolled out in September 1935, a sleek sports sedan that turned heads. Soon after came a two-seater with a bigger gas tank, and both cars were strong sellers. It was clear they had a hit on their hands. And after 10 years, the shareholders met and gave their blessing to change the company name to Jaguar. Lyons himself was in favor of the change, saying the name stood out and it didn't have the corporate speak feel of SS Cars. Of course, given that this was the last days of World War II, it's likely the branding issue was a little more awkward than that. And as the war ended, pent-up demand exploded. During the war, production slowed as all the steel was detailed to build ships, planes, and tanks. But as the 1950s dawned, Jaguar made some big moves. It sold some of its steel manufacturing plants, as well as buying a factory that produced its engines. While this made it dependent on outside sources, it was less of a concern at the moment. Jaguar now could design engines to its exact specifications, and the brand's momentum was accelerating. Because the company was all about going fast, Jaguar became associated with one thing: sleek, eye-catching sports cars. Its 1950s models and beyond summed up Lyons' motto of value for money. If you bought a Jaguar, you were going to be seen as a certain type of guy. And this was the age of high-risk, high-reward businessmen, and showing up in a Jaguar sent a message. The cars weren't the fastest in the world, but they were more than able to compete in motorsports events, and the company put a lot of value into proving its engineering and structural integrity. And it knew how to sell itself. The company's slogan, Grace, Space, Pace, led the company to record sales during its first few product lines, and its proprietary engine delivered great speed. The twin-cam straight-six engine was one of Jaguar's signatures, and future innovations helped the company take high-powered engines into the mainstream. While previous versions needed constant maintenance, the version found in Jaguar cars would prove to be smooth and easy to use while maintaining some serious power. Jaguar's engines wound up being one of the most ubiquitous and longest-lasting engines ever seen in sports cars, and it knew exactly how to promote it. During the 1950s, Jaguar leaned hard into motorsports. The car dominated the Le Mans 24-hour race 5 times during this decade, and that helped to make Jaguar an iconic brand among motorsports fans. Even if you weren't going to race yourself, every teenage boy dreamed of rolling up in a Jaguar to take their girl to the malt shop or the sock hop. The company had found the perfect balance of luxury, comfort, and some serious power to keep them at the top of the auto heap. And so it was time to make some big moves. In 1960, Jaguar purchased the Daimler Corporation, another acclaimed auto company at the time, and used its brand name for some of its most luxurious cars. The move boosted Jaguar's status, but it was still a small player in a big league. No match for the giant British Motor Corporation. When BMC purchased Press Steel Company, which made all of Jaguar's car bodies, Lyons worried about the supplies they needed being slow-walked. Getting to the age where he would likely retire soon, Lyons decided it was the perfect time to cut a deal. In 1965, Jaguar officially merged with BMC, seemingly ensuring the brand's security for a long time to come. But no one counted on politics. The government was much more involved directly in the workings of auto companies in the UK than they were in the US. The British leadership facilitated several more mergers with companies like Leyland, Standard, Triumph, and Rover. The new holding company ran into trouble quickly, with the new board making poor decisions and ultimately being nationalized in 1975. Jaguar, largely through no fault of its own, had seen its fortunes change dramatically, and it was now at the mercy of the British government. And there would be some bumpy roads to come. Jaguar was still a success, but it stood at the risk of going out of business because its larger holding company had run out of money. Most of the other cars floated by the company didn't have the same regard, and so an unlikely savior came in the form of Margaret Thatcher. The conservative British Prime Minister wanted to privatize many of the companies that were nationalized. She allowed Jaguar to split off from the larger company, debuting on the London Stock Exchange as its own brand in 1984. And new leadership would give the company some surprising hope. While William Lyons built Jaguar from nothing, many people say Sir John Egan is as much to credit for its long-term success. The first chairman of an independent Jaguar in the 1980s, he knew the company needed to get back to its roots. He wanted to push for quality control, restoring the company's reputation as a powerhouse. He also prioritized the delivery schedules and improved the production of many of the company's plants. It wouldn't be all smooth. About a third of the employees of Jaguar at the time were laid off, and the prices went up. But Jaguar saw huge sales boosts thanks to a favorable exchange rate in the US at the time. And in many ways, Egan's role was to pave the way for the next merger. Getting an offer from the king of cars is usually a good thing, but it would spell the beginning of the end for Jaguar's brand as we know it. The company was acquired by Ford in 1990, becoming a part of the American conglomerate's new premier automotive group, containing such storied brands as Aston Martin, Volvo, and Land Rover. It expanded its product line during this era, as well as becoming closely associated with Land Rover's cars. But it never made a profit during this era. Ford sold off Jaguar and Land Rover in 2008, using a collection of top financial firms to find the right buyer. They ultimately settled on Tata Motors, an Indian company, which officially merged the two as Jaguar Land Rover, the brand under which they exist today. And that brand might be running on empty. Jaguar may be a European icon at its core, but in its own homeland, it's now teetering on the edge of disaster. In April 2025, the company only registered 49 vehicles in Europe, and this was down from over 1,900 in the same period in 2024. A complete collapse. Globally, the fall hasn't been as steep. Falling over 80% from 7 years ago is unsustainable as a company. Now, everyone involved is looking at how to fix it, including through some risky, unconventional means. But sometimes risky and unconventional can just make things much worse. It's rare that a commercial for a car company gets the whole world talking again. In the past, Super Bowl commercials could get buzz for brands with big-budget celebrity guests and often over-the-top absurd stunts. But the cultural impact of this moment has lessened a lot. But in 2025, Jaguar was all anyone could talk about. It was November 2024, and the company debuted a new ad designed to modernize their brand, simplify their logo, and bring in a young and conscious audience. And the whole internet watched the ad and burst out laughing. There were too many things wrong with the ad to count, starting with a near total abandonment of their classic aesthetic. You didn't have to look further than the logo, which replaced the classic image of a growling Jaguar with a minimalist J logo that didn't do too much to attract people. But there was also something else very odd about the ad too. It was mostly a collection of attractive, diverse models dancing and posing for the camera, not giving away much of what the company was actually trying to sell. And there was one big thing missing. The famous car company didn't put any cars in its ad. The goal was to reposition the company as a lifestyle brand using slogans like Live Vivid and Delete Ordinary. But the result was a confusing mess of an ad that seemed to be advertising nothing in particular. Jaguar was back in the news, but it was a marketing laughingstock, and people quickly started analyzing how such a famous company could go so very wrong. Ad experts said the company had destroyed its brand image and the associations in people's minds to chase a new audience, one that might not even be there. It smelled like a sign of desperation, and maybe for a good reason. This was actually a part of a much bigger pivot for Jaguar, and one that was causing a ton of controversy. Not only did Jaguar Land Rover completely rebrand, but the announcement came with a huge change for the company. It would be pivoting to an entirely electric car model. This came with a shift to sleek, modern marketing designed to evoke what the company called exuberant modernism. It was widely spoofed by pundits and politicians, including Elon Musk, who runs the world's most famous electric car brand, Tesla. And people started asking, has Jaguar gone woke? Now, there's no evidence that politics motivated Jaguar's decision. It rarely does, as companies mostly try to capture where the winds are blowing financially. If they decided to pivot to electric cars, it's likely they did it because their financial advisors told them that was where the future is going. And they wasted no time rolling out their first model for the electric line. It wasn't a total flop, but it didn't exactly have buyers racing to the showroom either. Because it's not just what you sell, it's who you sell it to. Every company has a brand, and going outside of that is risky. This was seen in a product that couldn't be further from cars, breakfast cereal. One of the most popular brands in kids' breakfast cereals was Trix, a neon-colored fruit-flavored cereal known for its iconic bunny who could never get any of it. Under pressure to create healthier cereals for kids, the company switched in the 2000s to a formula with natural colors, fewer shapes, and a muted appearance that resembled Berry Berry Kix more. And sales dropped, leading the company to bring back the original as soon as the heat was off. And that is a $5 box of cereal. What about a $50,000 car? A car isn't just a vehicle, it's a lifestyle choice. And for decades, Jaguar was a status symbol. It came of age in the 1940s and reached the peak of its success in the 50s and 60s, an era that was immortalized in the TV drama Mad Men. This showed an era of high-powered ad executives who liked their suits pressed, their women gorgeous, their liquor chilled, and their cars flashy. This was the target audience of Jaguar, as the cars were expensive, but known to last. And while these executives weren't likely to get into a drag race, it was nice to know they could if they wanted to. And it might be that that audience just doesn't exist anymore. Jaguar doesn't cut corners, and that was a big part of its appeal. But it also limited who it could sell to. It was very rare for anyone's first car to be a Jaguar, unless you were the son of an executive who really wanted to make an impression at the prom. As such, the car skewed older, for people who were interested in the specs and details of the car, and those men and women weren't likely to casually switch to electric. After all, those who are interested in an electric car likely have brands associated with them, and Jaguar isn't one of them. And besides, they say millennials are killing the car industry. Jaguar being a luxury brand limits its appeal to those who can afford it. And that's not a large percentage of 20 and 30-somethings. Millennials, who were behind the eight ball by 2 wars and a recession as they were entering adulthood, and many have much lighter bank accounts as they head into their 40s compared to past generations. And that means that many are driving older cars, budget-friendly options, and electric cars from established companies, so they don't have to work gas into their budget. And things aren't looking any better for Gen Z. While Gen Z is slightly ahead of the curve compared to millennials at this point in their lives, there are other elements that make Gen Z unlikely to be the instrument of a Jaguar comeback. The generation has become known for its anxiety, and it has a higher percentage of members who don't drive at all, with only 4% of licensed drivers being in the Gen Z cohort. This is partially because the cost of the car, partially because of worries about environmental impacts of driving. And Jaguar isn't likely to find a friendly face in this generation. The group tends to be left-leaning iconoclasts who view displays of wealth as a character flaw. They're much more likely to Uber to their prom anyway, which means the comeback of Jaguar might rest on the old folks. The Jaguar brand does still have a lot of awareness, which made the rebrand from 2024 so controversial. After all, it did away with most of what makes Jaguar so iconic. The roaring big cat, gone. The manly man image, gone. Even that powerful rumbling engine that the company is so associated with, gone. Which left many people asking what Jaguar even is anymore. A company that wants customers to make a big investment can only succeed if people know that they're getting something they can trust. And right now, Jaguar isn't passing that test. While the car industry as a whole has suffered due to financial and branding considerations, the massive decline for Jaguar hasn't been matched by other companies as they shift to electric. Jaguar's rollout was a massive flop, but in that same year, BMW's electric vehicle sales rose 32.4%. Audi had similar success with 30.1% year-over-year. While both did see sale declines in Europe, they were modest, nothing like the massive bottoming out that we saw for Jaguar. And a far bigger problem might be around the corner. It is the word on everyone's lips right now: tariffs. Jaguar Range Rover is a British company, although it sells globally, and one of its biggest markets is the United States. But the current U.S. administration is determined to even up the U.S. trade ratios, with punishing tariffs that drive up the price of foreign products. While the tariffs are paid by the purchaser, not the manufacturer, it's likely to cause significant price hikes for Jaguar cars, something the company really can't afford right now. The US currently has only a 10% tariff on the UK, but it is still going to have an impact the company doesn't need. But Jaguar does have one big thing in its corner. While Jaguar's signature brand is in big trouble, it's not on its own anymore. It has the Land Rover company in its corner. This company is also British-owned, and the two are still operating under Tata Motors. While Jaguar is struggling, Land Rover runs a diverse business focusing on four-wheel drive vehicles with off-road capability. Its sports utility vehicles are very popular with outdoorsy types, and the company overall is delivering strong year-over-year performances. In fact, the 24-25 fiscal year was actually the company's strongest performance in over a decade, largely thanks to the Land Rover Defender and the Range Rover Sport offshoots, which makes Jaguar the problem child. Can the company make a comeback? Well, that depends largely on what Jaguar is today. The company had a very simple brand for the first 7 decades of its existence, building a reputation as a high-speed, high-power, high-quality sports car that was associated with cool drivers. Is there a market for that anymore? Probably, but it might be aging fast. The biggest fans of Jaguar cars these days are likely old-school collectors who want to take the cars out for a spin once in a while, but mostly want them as a status symbol. But those cars might not exist anymore. Today, to find an old-school Jaguar with that sleek sports car vibe, you're probably going to want to get a collector's help. But the 2025 Jaguar cars aren't just electric models, they don't look much like the classics. The only Jaguar model being produced in 2025 is the Jaguar F-Pace, a crossover SUV, and the first model of this size. It's a far cry from a sleek sports car, looking more at home in a middle school pickup line with a soccer dad behind the wheel. It's offering suburban comfort at luxury prices. The average price for a Jaguar F-Pace in the United States is just under $100,000, making it out of reach for the majority of customers. That's nothing new to Jaguar. The exclusivity was a big part of the brand's appeal. If you were seen driving down the road in a Jaguar, people assumed you were a high roller. It could help you pick up dates, close business deals, maybe even sweet-talk your way out of a ticket if the officer dreamed of owning one himself. If you were a Jaguar driver, it said as much about you as it did about the car. But many say the new models completely missed the mark. The F-Pace first debuted as a gas-powered model in 2015, and it does have an impressive top speed. It's equipped with an engine that can hit 200 miles per hour, as shown at the 2015 Frankfurt Motor Show, where it put on some impressive speed tricks. But due to its style and bulk, it's not likely to be used in many speed expos in the future, and most people who buy it are likely to be much more into practical uses. There's definitely a market for sustainable electric cars that are suitable for all-purpose driving, but will this product be enough to keep the Jaguar brand relevant in the modern day? The outlook is cloudy. Jaguar is one of the many brands that seemed invincible once upon a time because they were essentially synonymous with a market. But that market changes, and sometimes there are just not enough customers to keep a brand afloat. While Jaguar won't go under as its parent company is highly profitable, the question is if it'll remain profitable enough to keep producing anything under the brand. The best approach may be for the parent company to lean into nostalgia and market the models aggressively to collectors. It may be a small market, but one with deep pockets that could keep it above board for the long term. But the cars they want probably won't be electric SUVs. Could the problem be far deeper than just Jaguar's pivot to electric cars? Find out on Real Reason No One Wants to Buy Electric Cars, or click on this video instead.